241. 241 years. You know, part of the whole push of wanting Black folk to be in positions of authority was a hope that we could be perceived as human beings in the situations that we're in, even when we make mistakes. 241 years. What is the point of having Black folk in positions of authority when they're rooted in this kind of perspective? Now we got to be more particular because there's a gender dynamic to this. And it's one that I think we're starting to see a more consistent trope about. Right? Starting to see women in positions of authority, primarily due to their education. White collar positions such as being judges, politicians, so on and so forth. These are things that, of course, require college degrees, which Black women tend to have more of than Black men, to a greater extent than any other group of women and men. And yet, in the midst of all of this, you got a brother who's locked up for 241 years and sent there by a Black woman whose perceptions of him are no different than a racist white judge. And the question becomes, how many more of her are there? You know, I posed the argument for a while now that Black men and women live different qualities of life altogether. Despite Black men's successes, there is still a negative portrayal. Now, today's going to be really short because it hurt my heart to see this. It really did. And I think about how many Black males have found themselves in similar positions, whether they were mistakes made or whether they were completely innocent and nobody saw their humanity in either context. And does that make a difference? Hell yeah. It's the difference between graduating from one grade to another in school. It's the difference between getting a promotion at the job or not, or going to prison for the rest of your life or not. Having your humanity be a part of the equation when it comes to decisions that others get to make about your life is significant. And when not even Black women can do it. Now, I'm supposed to feel a certain kind of way because she admits that she had gone too far. Here's the thing. He'd been locked up all this time. Nothing's happened. And the other part that I think about is when you talk about judges, you have to think in bulk. It's not about what they did in one case. It's what they've done in hundreds. How many other Black men did she see this way? How many were locked up for unrealistic, unreasonable periods of time because she didn't see their humanity? How many? You think he's an isolated case? More than likely not. We have to be able to talk about the ways class and class upbringing can influence how we see one another, but we also have to talk about the way that Black men in particular have been made into monsters. The data shows us that even as young as 4 and 5 years old, we're perceived to be older and more dangerous than we are as Black males. And that influences how teachers see you. Why do you think Black males get sent to special ed more than any other group? Get expelled more than any other group? You know, I do believe it is real. Correct me if I'm wrong. I normally don't talk about things like this, but I had to because I thought it was just interesting. This is a post that a prominent Black feminist made on her page. I'm going to read it This is from, let's see, no, it's up here. It's from Dr. Imani Perry. One of the scholars of note in the current era, highly regarded, very productive when it comes to publishing. And she posted something that was not something you would normally see from a black feminist. This is something I posted on June 7th on my Facebook page. Dr. Perry says, when it comes to inequality in schooling, I am convinced nothing rivals the hostility faced by black boys. I am a black feminist, and I say this with the fullness of my politics around gender liberation. Nothing rivals it. Now, that is the first time I've ever heard a black feminist acknowledge that difference in the quality of life and treatment in this context in regard to education between black boys and girls. Normally, what I hear is a very bad faith argument where they advocate for black girls and make subtle little statements like, well, black girls get, suspended more than any other group. When really what that should read is black girls get suspended more than white girls. Black boys get suspended at nearly twice the rate of black girls. But they leave that last part out and just focus on the girls. It's interesting and sad, but it is nonetheless what tends to happen. So if we extrapolate a bit and we move beyond just sentencing, just education, and we go back to this issue of sentencing, 241 years. And it's the same impulse behind why boys are treated negatively in school, even when they haven't done anything, even when they're as young as 5 years old, or 4, or the lower preschool, right? It's the same impulse behind why they're treated the way they are in the workplace, or presumed to be a problem. Hell, even at my job, at my campus, years ago, I've had, how do I put it? I've had other employees think that I was going to do them physical harm just because I was standing there. They didn't presume that with anyone else. Anyway, all I can say, and I wish I could be more articulate, fellas, I apologize. I probably dropped the ball in this particular video, but I'm I 241 years. 240 fucking years. Anyway, y'all, go ahead and put your comments in, like, share, subscribe, join, and donate, support the channel. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. Do any of you have any experiences with lawyers, judges, where your humanity was not even part of the equation? See, this is the last thing I'm going to say on this. It takes me to Brian Banks. Look at the Brian Banks film, which was a fabrication of sorts as well, because one, they had to fabricate a love interest that stood in his corner that didn't exist, because they didn't want the film to come out and appear to be too anti-female, particularly anti-black female. Why? Because the woman that accused young Brian Banks, football player in Southern California, of rape was a black woman who won millions off the school district when her mother and she sued the district for her supposed rape, and Brian went to jail, even though he didn't actually do anything. And she came out later and admitted it, and nothing really happened. He was already on probation after he'd already done his time. Now he was exonerated, but that time was gone, and his opportunity to go to the NFL dashed. So when they made a film about his life, they downplayed the role of the black girl to some extent, who accused him falsely, and they created a love interest to make sure that there wasn't too negative a bent at how his experience made black women look in the equation. Yeah, because that was the priority, right? Anyway, it was. And nevertheless, Banks missed years on his life, prime years. But part of that too was he had a black female lawyer that suggested that he plea bargain, and who wouldn't even let his mother be present to help him make the decision, as he was a teenager. He was underage. She told him that it wouldn't be too much, plea bargain, everything would be cool. He got the book thrown at him. Did she see his humanity? I wonder. When you look at the stats, we live very different lives, even from our women. That's created a gulf of sorts between us. And there's a long list of other things, much of it being buffered by policy that after time has influenced behavior. What do I mean? I mean policies that advantage our girls, our women, to our expense, to our detriment, at our expense. And that policy influence over several decades has created an entitlement that is rooted in the idea that black men are actually lesser beings. And you end up with situations like this as a product of that entitled difference. 241 years. God damn it. Peace, y'all.